Hello, welcome to the Permaculture Vibe podcast, where we talk about permaculture people and their projects. My name is Cormac Harkin. I'm your host. And today we have John Metcalf with us. Welcome, John.
Hey, Cormac. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing. I'm looking forward to hearing about how you're getting on. Do you want to just give us a quick 30-second, a minute introduction, please?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been practicing this as well. My name's John Metcalf. I'm a permaculture designer, teacher, and I would call myself a regenerative practitioner. And I've been practicing permaculture for 5 or 6 years properly. I've got an advanced permaculture design certificate done with Matt Powers. It's the only one of its kind in the world. And yeah, it really opened up the space to see what permaculture is about. Since then, I've done a few different projects. My first one was my allotment, and I really used the principles, etc., to kind of create a space that was both for nature and myself. And I like to interweave a lot of the kind of people care and self-care into what I do, because growing a garden or a permaculture garden is as much about us as it is about the garden itself and how we interact. So I like to use things like grounding and breath, and I like to bring that into the mix of being in that space and how it allows us to become really healthy, essentially. So currently, this is where me and Cormac met through a platform called School, which is really cool. So I'm building a community there called Permaculture Gardens, and that is kind of like just a way to really be able to express what I'm about and build community around that. So I'm really excited about the next few years ahead, and I've got some really cool projects bubbling away and ready to release. And that's really why I've come to School, is just to kind of get that out there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what this podcast is going to bring up, and I'm sure it's going to be a nice way to kind of really get to know Cormac and hopefully reach more people. And permaculture is really about building community, isn't it? So I think finding like-minded people is a great way for us to be able to live our life.
Yeah, it's great stuff. We'll get back to School later on. But do you want to just tell us, John, how you discovered permaculture and then how you decided to get educated?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd heard about it on the grapevine for probably about 10 years ago. And I also looked into other kind of practices like biodynamics. And it really aligned, but it wasn't quite the time for me. And then I was listening to a podcast that was kind of unrelated. But the guy that presents this podcast has a permaculture farm in Arizona. And he told me about Matt Powers. And he was kind of plugging his course. So I looked into Matt Powers and I was like, oh, this guy's cool. I like the way he teaches, the way he presents. He's really passionate. So that's how the route I went down, and I started reading books. One of the books that I read, which is amazing, called One Straw Revolution. You've probably heard of this, Cormac. And that was kind of the start of the journey. I was ready for it. It made so much sense to me. I was kind of already doing it anyway, in a way, but not as structured. And then Matt Powers really just laid it all out for me, and that was it. I was hooked.
So you done his PDC and the advanced? Is that all in one course?
It's all the one course, and I also did another course called Regenerative Soil, which is very related to permaculture, but it's like a deep dive into the soil, basically. Um, but yeah, the framework of permaculture made so much sense to me, and I just thought this is just this is beautiful. It's been created for us, and um, when I look at gardens, that's what I see now. I just see it through the people care, earth care, fair share. You know, yeah, and it's a lovely lens to be able to interact with nature. You know.
Yeah, well, that's what when I'm doing designs, it's always the person first, the
Mm,
person in the space and the environment. So it's how much time they have, what kind of personality, are they all energy and they just want to do annuals, are they just chilled and they want to do perennials? So I think it's a very important part uh, in my designs anyway.
definitely, yeah, and we can't. It it's all contextual as well. This is another thing I learned is, I work with people growing food, and I set up like food gardens for them. So it's it's interesting to see that everyone has a different amount of time they can commit and energy, and some people are older, some people have like a young family, so it's a different dynamic, right? And so it really helps you to kind of relate to people and see it through their eyes. um, and you might have experienced this. It just allows you to really then widen that kind of understanding of how we can adapt it to all these different situations. um, so it's always exciting, and it kind of keeps me. I've practiced Buddhism for a long time, and actually there's a lot of similarities between the two, although they might seem a little bit disconnected. um, and this energy, you know it's everywhere, isn't it? And I think, um, I find like some people, it's interesting, like some people like to be out in the garden in the morning, others like to wait, and even like little subtleties, little nuances like that are really interesting, because you catch a lot in the morning, right? When you go out right in the morning, there's all the bird song, and things are just starting to waken up, and it's still quite moist, especially this time of year. um, yeah, so it's it's just it's a never ending experience, and there's always something new to discover. So
Yeah, no, I definitely about most mornings walking the dog. Uh, I like it better out in the morning than the afternoon because then it's noisy. It's more peaceful in the morning, I think.
yeah.
So your PDC, were you gardening before you did your PDC, or did you start doing gardening after?
Oh yeah, I was gardening, so I've been growing food for like, I think I started in 2011.
Well,
So it's been a while. And I actually, funny enough, I just started helping my dad out at his allotment. That was kind of the key to it. Um, but he was using slug pellets and stuff, and I like really didn't agree. I didn't agree with any of that stuff. So I thought, I'm going to get my own plot. So that's, you know, and then it was just like this gradual. I was like, I started to notice things that were growing, even things like dandelions, where a lot of people might have seen them as a nuisance, but I just saw them and I looked into dandelions, and I'm like, wow, these things are pretty cool actually. They've got a lot going for them, medicinally. And so I think having that own space, especially when it's not your garden, because a lot of gardens are lawns, and an allotment is literally designed for you to grow food.
yeah. So just for the benefit of our overseas viewers,
Yeah.
what is an allotment?
So an
Uh,
allotment is an allotted bit of land that, this goes back like probably to the 1700s or something like that. And people in the community would have been allotted land by the people that, owned the land, and they would work the land. And it kind of lost that context, and now it's more that these places are it's more of a heritage thing. So in most towns you'll have a space which is allotted for people growing food, and you pay an annual fee. I pay like £70 a year for a space which is maybe 29 meters by 5 meters, so maybe a tenth of an acre, I'd say, something like that. And everyone's growing food. So the allotment I'm on is 5 acres. So you've got like 100 and something plots. And it's a really cool way to meet like-minded people. And so I feel very grateful for having that, because I know people in other countries, I mentioned this, and people are like, what? You can pay only £70 a year and have a bit of land? So it's really cool, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're mostly council run, aren't they?
That's
So
correct.
local authorities. So you got your own allotment, and then you started gardening. So I take it you were permaculture gardening from the start then,
Yeah. So
organic anyway.
yes, definitely organic.
Uh,
I've never agreed with anything like that, the whole pesticide thing. I looked into Monsanto and Bayer and all those companies that, so I decided to go down that route, and I realized that actually, like, food was part of nature. So, if animals came and ate, or insects came and ate my food, at first of all, you have, most gardeners have this, oh no, I can't believe they're eating my plant. And then you might get to the next level and be like, oh, actually, well, they're here as well. They were here before me. And then I got to the level of like, well, actually, why are those insects eating that plant but not that plant? You know what I mean? And I started to realize that it wasn't necessarily how it looked. Like, what was actually going on wasn't necessarily the full story. So I started to look into how you can grow food without the need for all that stuff. And yeah, is it all right if I kind of go down this route? Because I think it's quite.
go anywhere you want.
I think so. The thing I've learned through permaculture and the other things that I've researched and studied is plants, like humans, have varying degrees of health, and that's determined by their environment. The soil is a big factor, but also the amount of light they get, and etc., etc., and the amount of nutrients they have, and the biology they're connected to in the soil. And there's a lot of research done on this, but plants, when they're weak, if they don't have the right vitamins or nutrients, minerals, enough water, too much water, etc., etc., are more prone to getting disease, eaten by pests. And the interesting thing is, when a plant's in distress, it actually sends out chemical signals, and things come along and eat it. So there's 2 points to this. One is like, well, those animals have a purpose because they're eating the food. But actually, if you're in an ecosystem, if a plant is weak, it's not necessarily going to pass on the genetic strength to the next generation. So in a way, that plant, is kind of sacrificing itself to go back into the soil, and it's almost like, the analogy I like to give it, Cormac, is where if you picture the Serengeti and you've got wildebeest and lions running after them, who do they go after first? They go after the weakest, because it's the easiest. There's no point trying to eat a plant that's strong and has strong cell walls, and like the calcium makes the strong cell walls, right? So I like to call snails, slugs, and other insects the cleanup crew, because they're taking away all the food that's not nutritionally dense enough and strong enough for me to eat and make me healthy. So that perspective in itself, like, takes away a lot of the frustration of animals eating your food. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, it allows you to kind of be into that cycle of, well, things have to decompose, and sometimes it's the elements, and sometimes it's animals, and sometimes it's biology, and etc. etc. You know,
And then you stick in the monocropping where there's 100 acres of corn that's struggling. Can you imagine the pheromone that's been released? Come eat it, come eat it.
yeah,
So then,
exactly.
so then the bugs come in, and then they spray more stuff on it to kill all the bugs. It was caused by a distress plant, and then you're eating that distress plant.
Exactly.
Uh,
This is the crazy thing, Cormac, is the thing I'm learning at the moment, and I'm going really deep into how light is affecting everything, how the movement of water, and when an environment is unbalanced, it becomes sick. You know, and what balances an environment? Well, biodiversity is like key, isn't it? Because it's like a society. If everyone thinks the same, I mean, we're all a bunch of drones. You know, it or you know, autonomons, or it's
NPCs is the word on it.
that's it. That's the
Yeah.
word. Yeah. So
Non-player characters for anybody who
yeah.
doesn't understand that.
Yeah. Do you know what I think? That, you know, even that is like, it's not about, it's about when we're conscious of how we're interacting with everything, we start to see things differently. Because when we consider ourselves to be separate from nature, and this is how I feel, like there's this disconnect and separation, and it means that you're less likely to care for the environment. But when we realize that we're part of it and we're completely reliant on it, I mean, most people probably don't think that those top 8 inches of soil feeds everyone on the planet. You know, it's quite a mad concept, isn't it? It's, you know, and how many people look up at the sun and think that thing up there is basically keeping everything going, you know? And so, you know, what can the garden do for, and permaculture specifically? Because, you know, the way I see permaculture is it's an amazing framework for expressing yourself exactly how you are, right? And everyone who grows a garden using permaculture will grow it completely differently. That's what I love about it, is that's the diversity acting out in the human. And it means that we can fully express ourselves, deeply connected to nature, involve our community, and that's where the real change happens. You know, because trying to change what governments are doing or what big banks are doing, or you name it, isn't going to work, because we've been trying to do that for thousands of years and it hasn't had the desired effect, right? So actually, if we start with our garden and our community, if everyone did that and everyone stopped shopping at supermarkets and grew their own food, well, things would change really quickly. You know?
I even think it's not just all your own food. I think it's just a small portion.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
just a few percent twisted. And then back to your earlier point about the soil, governments as well. So government are promoting these things like carbon credits, do your recycling, and they put everything on us, basically telling them we're destroying. But if they encourage gardening, and I think somebody I read somewhere that if everybody just added like 2 or 3 inches of soil to their gardens, the amount of carbon that would capture without any trade or anybody getting rich off the back of carbon credits would be phenomenal. So
yeah.
we all can on a small scale make a big difference if we all do it together. And to me, the whole thing's messed up, but they don't promote the right things.
It is. Yeah, it's a good point, and I think we have to really, like, for me, and this is like a wake up call for some people, right? We've got to take responsibility ourselves, because if we don't, it doesn't matter if governments have good intentions or not good intentions, right? Because they're just people at the end of the day, right? It's to give away your power or to disempower yourself means that when you complain, you're also kind of disempowering yourself, because to recycle something is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
To build a compost bin at home and recycle your food waste is even better, right? Because you do it yourself, and this is the thing: if you've got a family, your little kids, most kids like nature. They like what's going on, and it's a great way to, if you're worried about your kids having too much screen time, you know, if they've got you know, ADHD, all these, like, nature, that is a brilliant way. It's cheap, it can be free, you don't have to go out and spend money, you know, there's something for everyone. And especially when you involve kids, they're the ones that are going to inherit the world. So if we can teach them about how powerful growing a garden is, and growing even, you know, parsley, right? Just something. You completely change the lens that you see everything through, and that's what changed it. You know, there's probably a calculation for this, but the amount of garden space just in the UK, or, you know, these islands alone, is quite phenomenal, and the amount of food you could grow is quite phenomenal. And there's a good statistic. I think it was something like, there used to be in England, there used to be 20,000 small holdings which provided most of the food for most of the people in the country. This was back in 1800s.
Was it everybody had a rook or something, wasn't it?
Say that again.
Everybody had a house, then you had a rook.
Yeah.
It was like in the attic or something, and then if there was, say, there was 10 terraced houses, each rook grew something different.
This is
that's the way it used to be. And then, say, a couple would keep pigs, and then the waste went to the pigs. And
yeah, and this is what I like, because around that you build community. So imagine this, imagine if you didn't have to go to the supermarket to get your food, you could go to a local farm and walk in the field and pick your own food fresh. Imagine that as a day out for your family.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're fully connected to the land and the farmer, you've got a much better relationship. Okay, your food might start off a little bit more expensive, but trust me, your food would not go up like it would in the supermarkets, because you've got that relationship with the farmer, and the farmer doesn't have to look after all these fields. He doesn't have to have massive machinery, because, you know, my vision for, well, certainly for England, is to have really small farms growing most of the food, because I think big farming is completely unsustainable, and I would say it's probably got about 10 years left before it all falls apart. That's my personal opinion. I think if we had like maximum 20, 50 acre farms, you can easily provide all the food for people. And this isn't, you know, this is my vision in 20, 30 years, right? But I really feel that this is important, and there is going to be a revolution soon, a peaceful food revolution, where people go back to where we were 100, 200 years ago, because we've done it before, and we can't rely on the EU or even other countries for supplying us food, you know, because if food prices keep going up, what do people do? You know, so I think this is a great opportunity for people to just say, I'm going to go out and next year I'm going to grow a little raised bed, you know, and do it as a project with one of my kids, you know, or I'm going to go to an old people's home and help them grow food, you know. All this type of thing is like, how can you create community through growing food? So,
yeah. No, definitely on the kid front, was one of the reasons why I got into permaculture, was basically sort of, you think of these things like, I wanted to teach my kids the skills without teaching them, without sitting them down and saying. I just wanted to do it so I could show them so they pick it up. And like, now my kids go out and pick raspberries from the front garden, and then it's a race to see who can get the raspberries. And then I shout at her, "Get away from my raspberries!" and she giggles. No, it's a bit of fun. Like, and
Yeah,
she enjoys them even more because of that.
yeah,
So then it just becomes normal, and then I always think that it's great to have the vision of farming, but for sort of people just to start, as she says, we raised bed and some lettuce. It's an easy one, and cut and come again lettuce. Just get started. You can grow
yeah,
it indoors. You can grow it on a windowsill.
yeah,
So it's very small. And I think trying to get people just to start.
yeah. I
Uh,
started off growing microgreens,
yeah,
and sprouting seeds, and you can do that in the winter. I've got friends who just have a balcony and just grow on their balcony. Like this is a great thing about permaculture. You can apply it to any space. It doesn't have to be a farm. It doesn't even have to be a garden. It's on the Matt Powers course I did. There was a woman, and granted, this was I think it was in Kenya, but she started her niche was helping people grow food on balconies. Like that's what she did. And it's amazing how much you can grow on a balcony. You know.
yeah,
And I think start just with a seed. That's it. Think these little seeds. Plants get mad. Look at coriander seeds. Like, you know, it's such a beautiful thing that something that small can feed you in 3-4 months. Produce, that's something a seed that big, a tomato seed can produce like 100 tomatoes on one plant. I mean, it's quite amazing. Think
yeah,
how you use that, And this is the thing about nature is it's constantly multiplying. So it's when you start and you buy seeds, that thing will turn into 1,000 more seeds or 10,000 more seeds, and it just keeps going, keeps growing. And there's not many things that we have in society that do that. They don't just exponentially multiply. And all you need to do is put a bit of love, care, and time into it. And that's it. And that in itself, I think, is just completely mind-blowing,
I agree. There's so much abundance there that it's the stuff just wants to multiply, but then you're sold weed killers to kill weeds, which just want to grow and multiply, and then you're told to rely on supermarkets for food, which is absolutely crazy. But it's where we are. So so when you had the allotment, then you did your PDC. How did your gardening philosophy change, or did it change after the PDC?
Sure. Good question. I became a lot more patient. That's for sure.
With yourself or with the garden?
Well, I think it was myself first, Cormac. I think, the first permaculture principle, observe and interact. Well, I did. In fact, I was at my allotment today at dusk, and I did a little video. Unfortunately, it was a bit windy, so you couldn't hear me very well. But I was just explaining that I'm sitting there at the allotment, barefooted, touching the ground with my feet. The sun had just set. I could still see light. There was wind, and it just started raining. Like the 4 elements. I was interacting with the 4 elements, right? And I didn't actually do anything at my allotment. I just sat there for like 10-15 minutes. Now, maybe 4 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that because I would have been rushing around trying to do stuff, right? So it really teaches me to just be present and enjoy the space, even though I'm not doing anything. And right now, everything's slowing down in the Northern Hemisphere. It's a perfect time to slow down with it. So that kind of thing has really taught me quite deeply,
Yeah, no, I sort of. So the last thing is, don't feel bad when you go outside and just sit there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, because I got into gardening because of I wouldn't say it's ADHD, but the inability to sit still when I'm out. It was just right. I have to be doing something, so I have to be digging a hole, or I have to be planting, I have to be. So
Yeah,
the wife was, she was sunbathing, and I was like, I can't sit here all day, so I started doing stuff, and that's how I get into gardening, and that's
yeah,
I. So now I don't feel so bad just sitting and watching and observing.
yeah. Because you learn a
Um,
lot as well, Cormac, right? Just through you learn a lot. You learn a lot by doing stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you could do all the permaculture courses you wanted and never get out in the garden and never put it into action and not actually feel like it's done anything, you know. And doing stuff, taking action, I think is so important. Um, but for me personally, because I've always been that way, it was quite nice to kind of just stop because I look. It's like when you're walking along and you're walking from somewhere to somewhere and you're focused on getting somewhere, right? And the destination is in your mind. It's quite easy to miss what's along the way, but actually when you're like not so bothered about getting somewhere on time, you actually have a bit of a different experience of your journey. You might bump into someone that you knew or you haven't seen for a while, or do you know what I mean? So I think that's interesting because what I try to do is use these principles and try and kind of use them practically and like learn from that principle on my plot. And it really brings up because it's like capture and store energy, right? I quite apply that to sometimes you do need to just sit still and just capture a bit of more energy. then you're ready to go again, right? So yeah, it's great. When expressing it to you, it's quite interesting because I don't always necessarily think, how am I using it? So it's quite
yeah, yeah, and then my that's changed now because I've kids and I've less time, so I'm less harsh on myself when I don't get stuff done. But in terms of doing as well, you learn what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
So there's things I don't like to do, or there's things, but they pack all the permaculture stuff on every single technique. Just find what you want. As you say, that you can't learn that from YouTube or books or courses.
No, definitely not.
Um,
They're just a guide, right? Aren't they? Just a guide
yeah,
for us to. I like the permaculture principle. What is it? Patterns and details. So it's like it's a great way to you have a framework that how we kind of use that in our own garden or wherever we're growing food is completely unique to us, and there's no right or wrong way to do anything. And sometimes you need to dig over soil, right? Most of the time you don't want to, but sometimes it's necessary to do so. So I found to be too rigid with stuff because I'm quite disciplined and I can be a little bit too straight edgy, Sometimes I need to let go of that and just be like, I've just got to go with the flow, because all this resistance is actually causing me a lot of, and it can, can't it? If you're completely stubborn, and it can sometimes you're not necessarily trying to do things fast isn't always the best way to do things. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on that sentiment about getting stuck on something or being too fundamentalist about it. It's to get there as well. Like you don't have to. You can be a fundamentalist when you have all your systems and processes in place, but sometimes you just have to, like even if you have a bit of tomato feed there left over, and you decide to start practicing permaculture. Well, if you need tomatoes, you might want to start feeding them, but then move away from that feed once you know inside out how to grow tomatoes. You'll not need the feed anymore once you get your composting systems, your fertility systems up and running. Then you can afford to be a fundamentalist and be straight down the line, but at least you're moving the needle in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
Slowly, a little slow
yeah,
change.
and don't be harsh on yourself. As always, I say, just start moving towards the goal, and you'll learn along the way.
Yeah,
Um, so you said you're a designer to start. How did you move from having your own allotment? Do you design for other people?
I do. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and how did that journey start?
it's interesting. So this is something that's really quite. So when I when I did my permaculture design certificate, I obviously did the design for my allotment, and then I built that design out. So I created it. I built all the plants. I dug all the swales. I did the compost areas. I did a hugelkultur. I started to build a forest garden, etc., etc. Um, and then some time went by, and I thought, oh, what could I do? And then it wasn't for about a year or so um, that I then met um, someone, and basically he had access to like an acre of land and for free, which is really cool. Um, and that the way that happened was quite interesting because I knew someone that he knew, and he was looking for someone to help him out, and I was looking, you know, for an opportunity like that, and I met him. Anyway, so I then just ended up doing a design for that place. So you might have seen it. It's called the Walnut Project.
Oh,
So yeah, so I posted this on my school community. Um, Very short video, but it's an acre of land, quite local to me, about 8 miles away from me. Um, and the lady that owns the land has like given us full permission to just grow food on it. So we've decided to use permaculture as the framework to build a market garden, a permaculture garden, and a forest garden. It's got an existing orchard. Um, we've built a compost toilet on there. We've got a kitchen area that we've built. So it's like a slow. It's taken some time because we're all busy, right? But eventually, we want it to be a community space. So that designing that was obviously a big step up from an allotment plot onto something a bit bigger. And then I started working with this guy, Danny, and doing little bits with him. And then someone he knew was looking for someone uh, to build like an edible garden. So I did the permaculture design for that as well. And it kind of just snowballed from there. I just started meeting different people through the connections and the communities I'm in. And people were like, oh, we'd like this to be built as well. And it just kind of, so since then, I've just been doing designs and building from there. So I think like next year is going to be really busy for me because it's really starting to pick up now. Um, and it's interesting because I did the whole course in um, the advanced permaculture design course, and I learned to use SketchUp Pro. You might have heard of that, but I couldn't really get on with it. And it's quite interesting how what it did was force me to start using a pencil and a bit of paper to do the design. And it was really lovely because it was like, wow, actually, just looking at the contours and the aspect and trying to like get that in a pictorial form. It's like going back to school, right? Those creative days. So yeah, it's been really nice kind of been able to do that, and people are actually paying for that as a service. And maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't think that was going to be possible, although I dreamt about it. Um, so it's a slow burner, I think, permaculture design, because it's still quite small, isn't it? Not that many people know about it. So I think this is where the community comes in, is the bigger the community you build, the more people are going to be interested in that. I'll give you an example. I delivered a load of leaflets locally, right? 3 years ago, I delivered these leaflets, grow a permaculture garden, and I delivered them all around the local area. And I got a phone call the other day, and this woman said, "Oh, is this John? Oh, I've got your leaflet that you delivered 3 years ago, and I kind of just put it on a pinboard. Now I want you to come round and help me." You know, she's growing vegetables in her garden, but she wanted them. She was just really interested in what I said on the leaflet, you know. And I thought that was lovely because it's such a symbol for, like, you can plant a seed, but sometimes you never know when it's going to germinate, and sometimes it can be 3 years later, you know.
The conditions were right just for it.
Exactly. So this that's my new client, right? And it can just come from anywhere, and that's what I like about the whole permaculture regenerative thing. Is all we need to do is just keep creating and keep sowing seeds and nurturing things, and eventually it will all grow like a garden. Our community will grow like a garden, and if we just keep attracting people that think differently and have different opinions and a different approach, it becomes strong, and then we can really allow others to express themselves as well, you know.
Yeah.
This is what I feel is kind of happening now around the world, really. And that's why we've met Cormac, because the time is right, you know. It's the right thing, you know?
No, that's very, very true. Just a quick. So, are you using SketchUp or do you use pen and paper?
I use both. Both. I haven't used SketchUp for a while, but I do use it, like, for the topography.
Right.
And some things that might. So when I did the Walnut Project, I used it a little bit because it's an acre, so it's a little bit more precise when you use something like SketchUp Pro.
Right. So, are you really build 3D designs on SketchUp Pro?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I've been using Affinity on 2D. They just released Affinity Studio.
Right.
And they only released it there a couple of days ago. It's quite interesting. So basically, now you can take your base map, put it on the Affinity, and then you basically can AI generate elements.
Right.
So I can ask the AI within Affinity to draw me a greenhouse, and it draws me a greenhouse, and it's very realistic. Draw me a tree. So I had like an oak tree in there, but it's 2D, so it's like it's got very realistic.
Right. That's cool.
So I'll send you a video. I was messing about with there. It's not the best drawing, but it just shows you the realism of the. You know, it's 2D. It's from above, and it was basically like a greenhouse picture of a greenhouse from above that I could just plant in the main design. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah,
I'm open to, like, using the digital way of doing it as well. I think it's nice for those. So when I handed one of the clients I had, we just built a couple of edible beds for them. They want us to kind of do their pond as well. They've got hens, so I hand drew the whole thing, and it was quite nice when I handed it to the woman of the family. I think she really liked the colours and stuff, and it's quite nice to have that bit of paper to give to someone. But I think for the more technical stuff, it's really good to get into the digital side of it, because there's a lot more you can do. You can magnify stuff, and I think it's nice to have them both. Like, for me, doing the creative, like, or actually pen to paper, is quite a tactile experience for me, and it allows me to connect to the land, you know. But this is the greatest thing. We've got this choice, right? So we can do what we want, and what really suits us.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that's your school. Is that your school there, Regenerative Co-Creators?
That is, yeah, that's the one.
Right, and you want to just tell me? I personally love school. I needed a home for the podcast, basically. And so we have our stuff as well. So hopefully the podcast, we have a blog. And I just wanted a home for it that we could sort of build community around. And then when school popped up, I thought that sort of ticks the box. So I went over, and I'd say I've got to meet a lot more people. I find it very, I've had more, what's the word, engagement of school in a couple of weeks than I've had for years on Instagram and Facebook and the rest of them put together.
It's mad, Cormac, right? So 8 or 9 years ago, I left Facebook and I went onto Instagram for about 2 weeks, and I couldn't cope with it. I couldn't cope with it. I've never tried any of the others. My friend told me about school about a year ago, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds quite cool." And then someone else told me about it about 2 months ago, 3 months ago maybe, and I was like, "Oh, that's come up again. I need to look into that." And when I watched the videos, the school news, and the CEO of school is actually presenting the school news, I was like, this is different. This is really interesting. And then when I was like, nobody's just posting these silly things. There is actually quite, as you said, engaging. You're actually putting a lot of effort into, and you're getting that really nice response. And because those communities are really niche, it attracts the right people to you, you know. So I've obviously met you. I've met another community creator. My friend has created a community on there that I know in person. I've been telling everyone about it. Like, people are like, "Yeah, I'm a, you know, I know people that do like meditative stuff, and you know, things that are quite difficult to kind of get out there." And I'm like, you need to look onto school, because there's people that do stuff on calligraphy, and they're making like thousands of pounds a month just teaching people to write calligraphy. There's something for everyone. And that's what I really like about it, you know, is even like permaculture, it's not that big, but there's a lot of people that have joined my community that aren't necessarily practicing permaculture, but they're looking at the side of it that is maybe about nature, you know. And so I think I can see it being really impactful for entrepreneurs, especially like, you know, doing what we're doing. It's quite hard to find an audience, you know. And Facebook is it's just so full of algorithms and stuff that it's very difficult to get away from just the madness. So I love that it's all about building community, making money, which is really important. And the one thing I like about this, Cormac, is, I mean, there's people making stupid amounts of money in AI, like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, you know, and they would struggle to make that without the school community. And I think it's such a great, I mean, there's $1 billion going through it. There's something like 20,000 people creating, hundreds of thousands of people using it. Yeah, I'm really excited about what's going to happen.
Yeah, and for me, it used to be $99 or $90 a month or $99 a month. Now it's down to $10 a month.
Yeah.
So I had heard it about a while ago, but it was so dear. But then when I heard it was 10, to me it was a no-brainer for somebody to do that. So I've reduced now to I'm on Substack, where the podcast is released from. Again, that's you see what you subscribe to. And I like school for that reason too, that you only see what groups you're in. And then you can easily there's a classroom in there, so you can share courses, share videos. So to me, I'm enjoying it, put it that way. For the other ones, you have to pay. Like you put a post on Facebook and it says, like boost your numbers, boost your reach. And the biggest thing, it's really, I don't go on Facebook anymore because say I'm in 20 groups on Facebook, different permaculture groups. It'll not show me the groups that I'm in, but it'll say here, join this homesteading group, join this group, and then it'll show me a post, and it's like you've given me 3 options who don't follow, and you've given me one with a follow. I just want to see what I follow.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
It's tearing me hair out. Just go. So I gave up on it. So now I just go to school. I don't even bother. Probably I'll keep the accounts on there, but I'm not. I'll be somewhere. It'll be a post too, but. Loving the creator, I'm in another few groups as well. I've had a chance to go on, participate in other groups, the different circumstances than me. So I think there's maybe 4 or 5 permaculture groups in there.
Yeah,
but they all have a different take on it.
It's really cool, and I think there's something for everyone. Like, as this grows, because really what this is about for me is you get a platform to basically showcase your passion to a community who are looking for what you're showcasing. School is the meeting place for that, and you can become really creative with it. I'm going to launch a course, a very short course on there, and you've now got this tiers thing coming through, so you can allow some people to have it for free, and then you can allow people to scale up on that depending on how much they want to commit. But I think this ability to be able to have this really niche thing, because like my thing about permaculture gardens is how can you actually heal yourself? And I'm talking the stuff that I'm going to start launching, all the scientific white papers that talk about the benefits of being outside in the morning, or the benefits of grounding, and we're talking about, on a biochemical level, there are huge benefits people with mental health issues, emotional health issues, spiritual connection, just stretching, like gardening. When you stretch, you're stretching parts of your body that don't normally get that. And you probably, when you garden, you feel healthy, right? So the point I'm trying to get at is when we're kind of, when we don't have a community, it's very difficult to get what we love to do out there. And the thing I love about school is it's created this platform for people to do just that. And, I think it's only going to get better. So I'm really excited,
Great stuff. So I'll leave your school a link in the description if anybody wants to go there and sign up. So yeah, what's the plans for the near future?
Cool. So I've got this Walnut Project. So this winter we're going to kind of get that ready for planting out. We're going to get the community involved. So that's like my direct community. And then for school, I'm going to be launching a course called Regenerative Co-Creators. And it's quite a big one, Cormac, actually, because I've had this in the burner for like 3 years. But I'm going to go around the UK and interview people that are doing regenerative things. So everything from red light, and there'll be more about red light on my school community, to structured water. Check out structured water if you don't know about it. It's called full phase water. And the medical benefits of being able to find your passion and do what you love. So I'm going to be interviewing like naturopaths and people who look at regeneration of the cells and people that look at regeneration of the soil and, you know, everything in between. So from the microcosm to the macrocosm. It's quite a difficult one to explain.
No, sounds interesting.
No, it's going to be really cool because what I think is if we're going to, we need to, I think society needs to change the way they think. So rather than thinking there's a beginning and an end, is that everything is a cycle. And if we want to regenerate the land, we can't think about carbon credits. It's not going to work. We need to think about why the land is in trouble in the first place. And the reason is because we keep taking and taking and taking and taking and taking. We don't give anything back. So if we're going to take food from the environment, why not compost and put the compost back on the ground, on the earth? That's regenerative. And it doesn't take much to do that. So this is really what it's going to be about. It's like even the breath is regenerative. If we're always worried and always stressed, our breath is just constantly. If we have slow breath, we regenerate ourselves. You know, there's a lot of work on that being done at the moment. So I think this, you know, what I'm doing is quite a big thing, and I plan to travel over the UK. Maybe I'd like to come and see you as well.
Very welcome. I'll have to get the garden tidied.
You know, because I feel that the world needs this type of approach, right? Because the thing is with humanity, if I don't like this whole sixth extinction thing, but say humanity goes extinct, right? Nature will come back. It's really us that we've got to be worried about. It's not nature, because it will come back. We need to sort ourselves out. We need to change the way we see things, and that we cannot survive without the land. So if we just take care of our garden or a little pot, we can grow from there. And once you do that, you'll start meeting people who like to do that as well. And your whole life will change, because that's what happened to me, you know. So yeah, I'm excited. So maybe we can talk about that when I have you on my podcast.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Sweet.
I'm looking forward to that, and I'll leave the link to your podcast as well. It's the podcast. It's on YouTube, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. John, thanks very much. That's been very interesting. Any final message before we go?
No, I suppose just look, you know, if you're everyone that's watching this, if you're thinking about making that next step, just do it. Just try it, because you never know what's going to happen. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to what you were doing before.
That's true.
You know,
that's true.
So just enjoy life. That's the thing. You know, just enjoy it. Enjoy the present moment. That's what counts.
John, thanks very much. I'm sure we'll get you back on at some stage as well. Dive deeper into a few of them things.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, you'll find us on Substack and YouTube. Substack is a full article, and then on School as well. So for our School, we have an introduction to permaculture over there, an introduction to permaculture garden, and that's just to get you started in a free course on building soil. But it's a home for the podcast. We're hoping to get some behind the scenes stuff, trying to get some live podcasts in School for the School audience as well, just so I didn't have time to organise that with John tonight. But maybe we got more lives on there in the future, coffee chats. We have a social chat as well where you can come chat to me and others, where we just basically put the worldly rights on a Friday night over a cup of tea and a beer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's been the Permaculture Vine podcast, and that's been John Metcalf. John, thank you very much.
Thanks, Cormac. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.